Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrane. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest.
All right, let's go. Hey, today I'm joined by Thomas Waits. Thomas is a Toronto-based revenue leader, and he's founder of TW Sales. He's a fractional CRO advisor and a coach to high-growth tech startups. He's come to this because he's built and scaled sales organizations across multiple venture-backed companies, and he's led teams through a lot of growth, big transformation, and successful exits. So he worked across early-stage environments all the way up through complex enterprise sales motions, and along the way, he's developed a pretty compelling philosophy around culture, belief, and performance. And he first caught my attention was an article that he wrote on building winning sales team culture. So in this article, and we're going to talk about this, he challenges the traditional pressure-driven, individualized approach to sales leadership. And he's built teams by advocating for and executing on culture building, winning together, belief over pressure, high care with high expectations, and staying locked in on a few metrics that drive results. Plus, we're going to talk about tattoo bets as a motivator. Yes, you heard me right, tattoo bets. So let's get started with Thomas Waits. Thomas Waits, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a wonderful day. We get to talk sales. It's even better. So what part of the world are you in?
I'm in Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, Canada. And we're recording right in the middle of February. So it's dark, gray, and windy.
It is. Yes.
All right. But you have a secret to breaking that spell, don't you?
I do. As much because I've worked remotely the last several years. I try to get down south as much as I can. So travel and work in South America quite often in the wintertime.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we were talking back in the what do you call this on a podcast? The green room. But before we got started about your trip to Chile, and I got to say that looked fantastic.
Yeah. Very, very, very fortunate that I can work from places like that.
That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome. Well, tell us a little bit. We're talking sales today. Tell us a little bit about your sales journey and where you started and then where you are in the world of sales right now.
Yeah, of course. So I think like a lot of people, I didn't expect to be in sales or sales leadership. So I went to grad school for finance and economics. And I remember there were recruiting sessions. All my peers were super excited about them to go work at big banks or go to your PhD or work with the government. And I was like, I would absolutely hate these things. And so I didn't really know what to do. And I was sort of the black sheep of my program, I suppose. So I wasn't really sure what to do. And then I was like, I'm going to go work at a startup. I forget how I figured that out, but I was like, I'm going to go work at a startup. And then, I can explore what I want to do and it'll be nice and open and lots of opportunities. So I joined an American solar energy company as their first employee. So this is when residential solar was like booming in the States. This is under the Obama administration. They were heavily subsidizing solar, really booming. A lot of the states were incentivizing it as well individually. And so I started out there, first employee, and then sort of through like a series of events, like I ended up leading our third-party sales teams. So we had all third-party sales, and it was like call centers, door-to-door, basically any sort of B2C you could possibly have. And they were not doing very well. So I ended up leading that within about 6 months, which was not my intention at all. And then we were acquired by a $9 billion company in Silicon Valley called SunEdison. So then we went, like that was within, I think, 6 or 8 months as well. And then started going to the States every other week, managing my teams, and then scaled that up. And then SunEdison went bankrupt a year after. So it was the largest corporate bankruptcy in the United States in 2016. So that was interesting. We spun ourselves out again, went to another publicly traded company, and then did solar for, I think it was like 5 or 6 years.
Hmm.
And then I went on to prop tech company, sort of like Canada's Zillow, called Properly. And
Property
we were
tech. Okay.
prop tech.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so led sales there, scaled us up after our Series A. We raised about $250 million, so did really well with that. And then I was recruited to a company called Together to lead their sales. So I was VP of sales there. It was a global SaaS company, so we were doing sort of like HR tech, selling to very, very large enterprise, like
Hmm.
companies like Netflix, Microsoft, the UN, stuff like that. We scaled that up, sold it just over a year ago. And then I joined a company called Median as CRO after that. So I was an advisor, like GTM advisor to Median for 2 years prior, joined as CRO, led a bunch of transformation, and then have switched full time over to TW Sales, where I do fractional CRO work and then advisory work for startups.
That's a rapid growth trajectory that you just
Yeah.
talked about. So a lot of different things. What's your
Mhm.
favorite thing? Tell me about your in doing all of those things. We can all talk growth. We can all talk, that type of stuff. But what is your favorite thing about the sales world and being a sales leader?
Ooh, that's a great question. I love what I do, like truly, truly love what I do. I think for me, this is going to sound maybe a little bit cheesy, but I sincerely mean it. Is the growth of the people that work for me, like
Hmm.
undoubtedly so, because because it's always been startups that have been scaling, and so the opportunities are endless if you want to go capture them. And I've just seen just tremendous growth in people who've worked for me, for let's say 2, 3, 4 years, like that sort of thing. Like it's amazing when I think back to like when I met them versus like who they are today or who they are at that point in time. Like it's just that to me is the most meaningful and most fun. My favorite thing.
Well, you recently put out, and one of the reasons we connected is you put out this
Hmm.
this piece. It was last year. Well, it was a while ago, but it was really around how you build a winning sales team culture.
Hmm.
And so I love your passion for the people, but let's dive into that.
Sure.
Like, so you have a philosophy in this article
Hmm.
that you talk about we all win together. So what do you mean by that?
It's a good question. So I think when you look at most SaaS or most sales teams, they tend to prioritize the individual. So like leaderboards or things like, the reward is like President's Club, where it's like the top people go, and then the middle of the pack, bottom people like don't go or don't get the reward. And so like things and people tend to be focused more on their individual quota than how the team's doing, how the company's doing. And so the model that I have, I guess I've refined over these various companies that I've scaled, is really prioritizing the team and the collective. And so it's turning from, our individual targets, which we still have and are still important, but it's like focusing on the team's target. Like, what is our revenue target for the quarter? How are we performing as a team? Getting people involved in each other's growth, I think, is really, really important. So I love doing like, let's say, peer mentorship, or maybe it's somebody like one step above, those sorts of things. So it basically is like the antithesis of sort of like the toxic competition that you see a lot of sales teams characterized by, and sort of like the individual pursuits.
How did I mean, if you look at a lot of traditional sales teams, they're not built that way, right? So how does a sales team, when you're executing that way, I'm sure it brings about its own challenges and problems. Like,
Mhm.
how does a team react to that?
Good question. I think that people generally are quite responsive and really like that. Like, because the thing is like in sales, if you're just in it for yourself and your own individual sort of goal, it can be quite lonely, right? And you have these like highs where you get these really big wins, but it's like if you have hostilities on your team, no one's going to be really truly celebrating that with you. And then you have lots of lows. Like even great sellers have lows, right? It's like you lose a really large enterprise account. sort of last minute that you didn't think you were going to lose, right? Like those sorts of things. And so those highs and lows, to go through those on your own, it's really quite lonely. And I think all people, maybe this is like I guess maybe philosophy around people. I think all people want to be a part of something, like something that's greater than themselves. And if you can create that, and you can create a mission and a team that's all sort of rowing the boats in the same direction, like it's really quite powerful. I don't think I've ever really had anybody like hugely resist that. I don't think.
Well, it ties into one of the next points you make in this article that I want to talk through, which is this idea of you frame it as belief over pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So driving that team, winning together, focusing on that. What do you mean by belief over pressure?
It's a good question. So this is definitely something that I have aired on in the past, and I think a lot of sales leaders do too. And so it's basically, the idea is like a lot of sales leaders are really leading with pressure on their sellers. So for example, like a lot of one-on-ones that sales leaders have, it's like they're doing a pipeline review and they're like, why hasn't this deal closed? Is this deal going to like that sort of thing? And really pressuring on that. Or like really highlighting if someone's underperforming, like focusing on like those deficits and like those sorts of things. And so they end up pressuring quite a bit. Or I've heard so many stories of like account executives tell me like their whatever manager or VP of sales is like, hey, this deal's too slow. Like, I'm going to get involved in this. Or it's like, here's what you need to do. Right. And they sort of take over. And I was like guilty of various things like that, or for underperforming, like I'd be a bit of a bear with the team, which is, as it turns out, not a great thing to do, I've learned, but definitely erred on that. Whereas I think if you shift to belief, I think it's actually a lot more powerful. And so as I was thinking about it, and sort of this philosophy and where it came from, it's like, if you look at somebody like Tom Brady, you're not gonna be like, hey, Tom, like you're not gonna pressure Tom Brady to score a touchdown, right? Or it's like, you're not gonna pressure Michael Jordan to hit like the 3-pointer, right? It's like, those people are champions, they're winners. It's like, you trust them to go do it. And I think it's actually very much the same with your salespeople, is that if you trust them, empower them, and then give them what they need, I actually think that they perform way, way better. And this is a big realization I came to with one of my teams at Together, was that I realized that they were so focused on winning, and they already had so much internal pressure, that if I pressured them even just a little bit, they basically fell over. Right. And so what they really needed was support, because they already had that drive internally. And so if you have people like that on your team, and you recruit people like that on your team, you don't need to pressure them at all. It'll be counterproductive.
Well, and you talk about one thing in your philosophy that I absolutely adore, which is coaching. And so,
yes,
coaching as a leverage point, not management as a leverage point to success, or pressure as a leverage point to success, or power, but coaching. So talk about that a little bit, and let's dive a bit on your coaching philosophy.
For sure. And this is something that I've refined over time as well. And, I think the first thing is like, and I highlight this in the article, is that there's coaching, telling, and training. And I hear like, 'cause I think coaching sort of became like a buzzword, or sort of in vogue. And so I think it gets misused a little bit, but like a lot of sales leaders tell. So it's like, let's say account executive comes to them with a deal, and the sales leader immediately is like, here's what you need to do. Right. And they just sort of jump to that. So that would be telling. Training would be, and there's like a place for telling. Like, let's say I gave an example in the article where it's like, all deals over 50K have to be reviewed by legal. Like, that's like telling, right? Like, you're not going to coach on that, right? So telling is okay in certain instances. Then there's like training, which a lot of people are doing. Training can be good for different reasons too, but it's like, here's the new product we rolled out, we're going to do product training on it. It's like, that's a good place for training. And then coaching, if you can, like, I think it could be implemented to be the predominant way that you work with your team. And so with coaching, I think one of the biggest things is not making assumptions, which as a sales leader is so easy to make assumptions. It's like, you hear something, it's like you've heard that hundreds of times before from all the, all your experiences, and then you want to jump to that thing, right? And so it's like, a seller says, like, I'm having a really hard time doing discovery. And oftentimes then the sales leader will hop in and then they'll tell them like, here's how you do discovery, right? And they often miss the mark because oftentimes the assumptions are incorrect or they're diagnosing the wrong problem. So like I look at three different pillars of sales success and performance, which is mindset, behavior, and skill. And a lot of sales leaders in their sort of let's say training and telling end up really focusing on sales skills.
Mm-hmm.
But with coaching, when somebody has a challenge, normally we break it down and it's like, is this mindset, behavior, or sales skills? So like, there's a BDR that I've been mentoring. He just found me on LinkedIn, and I've been sort of casually mentoring him every week as he gets going, which has been fun. And he was talking about cold calling. He's like, I really need to work on my cold call skills. And I was like, okay, well, tell me about how things are going so far. He broke it down. He's like, I'm freezing on these calls. I was like, okay, why is that? And then he's like, well, I don't know what to say. And it's like, well, why? And so we keep breaking it down. And it's like, it basically funneled into, like, not surprisingly, he's scared to be rejected, right? Like, this is his first sales job. As a BDR, you're getting rejected like left, right, and center all day, every day. And, it's not a comfortable experience when you're first getting going. And so him and I discussed that. We talked about the mindset around that and the challenges that he's facing. But that had nothing to do with like, here's the script you need, or you have to have like lots of energy when you like. It wasn't like that at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me that his sales manager, was just focusing on like the skills. And so like those are the sorts of misses that can happen. And then I also work with a lot of sales leaders, and then they talk to me. It's like, well, this person, we've been focusing on this in our coaching or whatever. And it's like, nothing's changed. It's like, because oftentimes we're making assumptions about the wrong thing and solving for the wrong thing. The other thing with coaching too is that I let my team bring to me the things that they want to be coached on. So like a lot of companies, it's very common where it's like the sales leader goes into their call recording tool like Gong, and they just sort of pick a random call and then they leave feedback, which I think can be scary for people. It can often focus on the wrong thing. So like, it's like maybe the sales leader thinks the person needs to focus on discovery, but maybe they want to focus on setting next steps or something like that. And so I really let the team choose, like if we're doing calls, like it's like you choose the call or you choose the topic, and then they're racing that with me. So it's very, very high trust. And I would say that people's growth under a coaching model like that is just, it's just so much faster, so much faster.
Well, you have this concept of high care and high expectations. So one of the challenges that I find one of the mistakes people make when they start talking about like leveraging coaching as your primary tool or those type of things is that it's a soft thing. And this is not at all a soft thing. This is an incredibly high accountability thing. Talk about that a little bit, this idea of high care and high expectations.
Yeah, for sure. So someone described my leadership style as this a few years ago, and I really liked the term because I do have exceptionally high expectations. Like I expect us to go crush it every single quarter, and both individually and as a team, and scale rapidly. And we're going to be working really hard. We're going to be growing. Like, so that's like a big, big part of who I am and what we're looking to do. But then I also accompany it with high care, which I think is really important. So if you looked at like, when people talk about like sink or swim, that would be high expectations, low care, right? And so for me, it's like I have really high expectations, but it's like I create an environment where people have all the support that they need. They can come seek me out if they need additional help. We do like things like daily team meetings as an example that have like different themes. We're working on different skills or things on mindset, and we're connecting and we're building team. Like the vast majority of my time is focused on people development and supporting people. And so it's still hard. Like I think it's still challenging and stressful to work for me, to be clear. Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows. But it's like, we have these really lofty goals, and I'm going to do absolutely everything that I can to make sure that I'm working with you to achieve those.
And so when that expectation, that high care, that high expectation, and the coaching, how does that align to, your sales management playbook, your management by, KPIs and those type of things? How do those things play into your philosophy?
Good question. So I think in terms of like a winning sales team culture, because when I wrote the article, I was trying to figure out, this might sound silly, but I was trying to figure out like why I've been able to scale these companies so rapidly, right? And what was sort of my secret behind that. And that's how I ended up writing this article. So it was kind of like exploration myself and trying to figure that out. And so, I think with high expectations, that to me, like, it peels back a lot of limiting beliefs that people have, right? And so it's so interesting. It's like every company, when I join or start the sales team, people have this, like, it's like, oh, selling a 50K deal is crazy, or selling a 100K deal is crazy, or selling a seven figure, like, and so people just have these limiting beliefs, or it's like, my quota is, I don't know, it's like my quota is 300K a quarter. And so if I get to 320, like, that's awesome. Or if I get to, but it's like, well, maybe you could get to 600, like, who knows, right? And so I think like the high expectations and the way that I go about doing this with people, it really is meant to peel back those limiting beliefs so that there's that. But then on the flip side is that with high care, it's like I invest so much time and so much of myself into the people on my team, that they know that I have a deep, deep belief in them, right? Like, otherwise I wouldn't spend, like, logically, I just wouldn't spend the time that I do, right? It's like, I really, really care about them. I care about them as individuals. It's not just about them reaching their numbers or anything like that. And for me, it's deeply, deeply meaningful. And I think about it as a service in some ways. And so I think when you have that dynamic going on, like, people want to be their absolute best and they believe that they can. And I think their idea about, what their absolute best is, like, radically transforms into something greater than they would have conceived of before. Like, I think of 2 companies ago, one of my account executives, when I joined, I think her quota was like 150 or something like that when I took over sales. And my last quarter with her, she did just over 400, right? And I think the idea of doing that, and she'd only been an SDR like the year prior to me joining this company, and so for her doing that and selling to these enterprises, like, I think that was just, I don't think she would have believed me if I told her when I first met her that that's what she'd be doing. And so that sort of mentality, it really, really, I think, gets imprinted on the team and really drives performance.
And you talk about this idea of also leveraging some metrics, these idea of vanity metrics as fun
Yes.
fuel, like
Yeah.
as a way to not necessarily track your performance in the company or as a core
Mhm.
metric, but to give people something to lock into. So tell me a little
Exactly.
bit about more. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Good question. The first talk I did on this sort of, a lot of people were talking about this because I do tattoo bets on my teams, which is, I think, a little bit unorthodox. I don't know. Have you ever had anyone on who does tattoo bets, Paul?
I've never done a tattoo
Okay.
bet.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's not a
That's
face.
probably
It's obviously not a face tattoo bet from your from your face. So
no. No one's done the Mike Tyson yet. I don't know what you'd have to come up for that, but
yeah.
maybe like becoming a unicorn or something like that, your company. But
Yeah.
so this came up through a series of events, I'll say. But basically, when I joined together, I joined and we're just under like 1.5 million in ARR. So very, very small. Like, there was a small sales team in place, and we happened to have our company offsites my second week there, and we had like a celebrity murder mystery party, and I went as Dennis Rodman, so I had all these fake tattoos on me, and then I ended up tattooing everybody on the company or at the company because I had a bunch left over, and they were like surprisingly good quality. So then everyone had these tattoos on for the rest of the week, which was like absolutely hilarious. Like, including like our software engineers and stuff like that. Anyway, one night I said to the team, I was like, we should set a bet. So when we hit 100 million in ARR, we all get together, logo tattoos. That was our company. It was together. It was like this cute little hand was our logo. And everyone was like, yeah, like, let's do it. And like, everyone was fired up. And then what happened was, it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, one of my SDRs messages me in the morning. He's like, hey, Thomas, he's like, Can we talk? And I was like, sure, we can talk. And wasn't really sure what it was about. And then we get on Zoom. He puts his ankle up on his desk and shows me that he got our company logo tattooed on the weekend. And we were like nowhere near 100 million in ARR. And then he showed it at all hands later that day, and I think I saw our two co-founders' heads just explode. So that happened. He was also still on probation, hilariously. But so I remember saying to someone jokingly, I was like, I can never fire that man. But anyway, so that was the thing. And then I think people were so fired up about this, then we started making tattoo bets about different things. And so one of them was about a milestone for our largest deal in company history. I was like, you could get a tattoo of your choosing for this. And everyone was fired up. Everyone opted in. And then hilariously, I didn't expect this would happen, but I actually sold it myself. I sold all 40,000 employees at Warner Brothers. And anyway, so then I got to, I was going to say had to, but I got to get a tattoo. And so I chose a bull, which I have on my right shoulder blade here. So anyway, so that was the thing. And then the next company that I went to, they had heard about all this. And then we did the same with them. So it's just this like hilarious thing. And
That's
so many
awesome.
people have, yeah. So many people have asked me like, what if someone doesn't want to do the tattoo bet? Which is like, fine. I wouldn't push someone on it. That'd be insane. But I've never had anyone say they didn't want to do it. So
That's pretty funny. It's just
yeah,
a good way to fire people up and focus
yeah,
on some
yeah, yeah.
cool metrics and get people
Mhm.
excited. And
Yeah.
um, now let's flip the script a little bit and let's talk about it as we close up. Let's talk about the 4 metrics that you feel really matter in terms of, this is the rest is really about building culture, but then we're building culture to produce, right? So what
Yeah.
are the things that we're measuring in producing?
Yeah. So this is maybe a little bit controversial too, but it's like I just focus on 4 metrics with my team. And so I focus on close one, discounted forecast, a retention metric, because normally I know it can be different at different companies, but normally CS or account management rolls up under me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about that as my sales team if they're revenue generating. So it could be like GDR, NRR, or something like that. And then a top of funnel metric, which would be, depending on how the team's structured in the sales process, would be like disco call sat or demo call sat. And I just do those 4. And I think it's like very, very simple. We're very locked in on it. It's like I show them every week. We look at it as where we're at as a team. We have our team goals. We look at it as individuals as well. And I think like just from talking to so many different sellers, it's like so many companies, like the sales leaders, like how many cold calls have you made today and how many emails have you sent today and all these sorts of things. And like I've had friends who are really successful AEs, like full cycle AEs, and they're way above their quota for the quarter, but then the sales leader is like, well, but you haven't made the dials I wanted you to make, right? Like, and it's like, well, is that really important, and then there's just different metrics as well, like conversion rates and slicing and dicing data. And I think for a lot of sellers, I think it's just very, very confusing. And it's like people don't know what's important, because it's like if you have like 20 or more, usually more things that are like important, then that means like none of them are important, right? And then interestingly, they can also be at odds with each other, where it's like the example of my friend who's an AE, he's like crushed his quota, but he didn't make his cold calls. It's like, well, was that really like if he had focused on his cold calls, maybe he wouldn't have gotten there, right? And so for me, it's like I just lock in on it's like here's the results that we need to get to. We're very, very clear on where we're at. Like we're very clear on the path, and focus on that. And then it just becomes very, very simple and easy for people to focus on winning and focus on the right things.
Well, that doesn't mean you don't know the other metrics, right? Or the other things. It doesn't mean that you yourself don't have an understanding of them. It just means that you're not communicating them as core things for the team to focus, right?
Yeah. Like I find it's a good follow-up question. Like I find the other things to be helpful sometimes for diagnosing issues. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember one of my AEs, her and I were chatting, and she had this tendency that she would close basically all of her revenue at the end of the quarter, right? And it was like a slow ramp up each month, and then dramatically would close everything at the end. her and I were talking about this, and she couldn't figure out why this was happening. And I was like, I suspect you put in a lot more effort towards the end of the month. And she's like, I don't think so. And then I remember, like, I pulled up sales activities, and then you could see it was hilarious. Like, her sales activity literally followed. It was basically like a match for her close one graph every quarter. And she found that to be. She's like, oh, I didn't really realize that I was doing that. And so, like, stuff like that can be really helpful. But I'm not like, hey, you need to have 2,000 sales activities or like whatever. Like, I just don't find those are helpful, but I do find it helpful for diagnosing. Or if the BDRs are behind, it's like, okay, it's like, well, what's our activity trending like? And is it down this quarter, down this month? And like, it's helpful in that case, but not to target. Whereas most companies, they do target these things. And I just think it's confusing.
Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate you diving in and going through your philosophy on this. And if people have questions and they want to dive in with you a little bit more, Thomas, where do they find you?
Yeah, of course. So people can find me on LinkedIn. If they want to reach out, message me. I'm always happy to meet new folks. And then I also have my website, which is twsales.com. So I have a lot of helpful articles on there. And then also my contact information too.
And you're focused on fractional work plus consulting work and coaching, or is there a specific lane that what TW Sales is focused on?
Great question. So fractional CRO, and then also advisor. And I do like some one-off coaching as well. And then primarily I'm working with tech startups that are seed, Series A, or Series B. And then primarily work with the founder who is overseeing sales, so CEO, COO, and then typically the first sales leader. I do stuff with the teams as well, but primarily it's with the founders and then also the sales leader or sales leaders.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you being on the program, Thomas. Thank you so much for bringing your ideas on building a sales culture. And we'll make sure that we put this link to the winning sales team culture article that you put in the show notes, so everybody can take a peek at that, because I had read it and I liked your take, so it's really good to get you on and talking it through. Good. All right, everybody, please make sure you're reaching out, you're connecting with Thomas, you're doing all the things like the likes, the shares, the clickings, the all of that jazz. Please make sure the subscribings. Yes, I forgot the subscribings. Make sure you're doing that subscribing to get this content out here. And Thomas, thanks for elevating the sales profession. That is our mission here at Membrane. That's what we do. And everybody, keep shining bright. Have an absolutely amazing day.